You've probably seen this SUV around and you've probably seen how cheap it is, but there's some stuff you should know before you buy one. Stick around and I'll tell you more. This is the GWM Haval Jolion, a value-packed small SUV from China that offers plenty on paper. It's got a 5-star ANCAP safety rating. It's got plenty of space. It's got a turbocharged engine or hybrid available. And it's got a 7-year warranty. Too good to be true? You're going to find out in this review. Thanks for watching. I hope you are enjoying what you are seeing so far. This is The Right Car. I'm Matt, and I'm here to help you find the right car for your needs. Is this going to be it? Depends. Let's keep going with it. There are 4 different variants in the Haval Jolion range that you can choose from. The entry-level premium, which is just under $28,500 drive away. That is pretty good value for money for a car of this size with the inclusions that it has. Some of those include alloy wheels, it's got a big touchscreen media system, and plenty more besides that. The next step up from there is called the Luxe. It costs a few $1,000s more, but it adds the option of hybrid power if that's what you're after. And a lot of people these days certainly are. It gets bigger wheels again, and it gets a few nice inclusions on the inside. It does definitely feel the money that you're paying for it. Above that is the Ultra, which gets a 360-degree camera. It gets full LED lighting, just like the model below it, and it gets fake leather interior trim and a big panoramic sunroof. So it could appeal to you if you're after a few of the luxury items that you might expect. And then there's this one, which is called the S. It's the sportiest version in the range. It's got black exterior trim highlights, it's got black wheels, and it gets a bit more power and torque than the other models. More on that in a sec. Plus it gets different suspension. Seems pretty good value for money, doesn't it? There are plenty of really great alternatives to the Haval Jolion SUV because in the small SUV space there is more competition than anywhere else in the market. There's that many nameplates, that many different takes on the theme, and I'm going to discuss a few of my picks right now. The first, Toyota Corolla Cross, which has a choice of petrol or hybrid. Toyota is known for hybrids, basically the hybrid brand these days, right? So if that matters to you, that's what I would choose. It has a better feeling cabin inside. It just feels a bit more like it's been engineered to the nth degree because that's what you expect of Toyota, right? And then there's the Kia Seltos. Watch my review, hit that link up there. I really like that car in a lot of ways, but it does have some annoying safety technology. It's got the choice of all-wheel drive turbo or front-wheel drive non-turbo. So there are a few options there to choose from and decent value as well. The other choice you could probably consider is the Nissan Qashqai. It's a small SUV that impressed the socks off me, not literally. Hit the link up there and you can be able to watch that review of that car. I think the ST Plus grade is probably the sweet spot in that range, and that's going to cost you about 40 grand drive away. So still a little bit more expensive than this and maybe not as feature rich, but maybe going to be a nicer car to live with. The Jolion is considered a small SUV, but at almost 4.5 meters long, it's one of the bigger small SUVs out there. I think it looks pretty good, to be honest, but there are some things that do annoy me just a little bit. There's only proximity unlocking on the driver's door, which can be a little bit annoying. If you've got your arms full with kids or groceries, that could be a concern. Although it does also work on the boot. I'm going to show you in the boot in a second, but before we do, there's a few things I want to call out about this tailgate. It's not my favorite. I don't like that there's so much text to look at, and I really don't like these little plugs that are designed for the Chinese number plates, and they haven't even bothered to fix that. I would have thought they would have done that. Anyway, let's look inside the boot. Boot space in the Haval Jolion isn't that bad. 430 litres of cargo capacity is what you've got to work with, which is very good for this size of SUV. Now, there is a space saver spare wheel under the boot floor, but keep in mind that if you choose the hybrid, you get a smaller boot, so 390 litres. Still a pretty usable size. It's easy to see why someone would sit in a Haval Jolion and feel wowed by the experience in here, because it's going to make a really nice upgrade from an old Captiva or Lancer or whatever you are trading in to get into one of these cars, because it does have a lot going for it in terms of the way it looks at first glance. This big 12.3-inch screen, now that's not standard on all of them. You get a smaller screen on some of them, but still a pretty big screen on the smaller versions as well. And it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it is very difficult to work. I know that there's going to be people who own Jolions who tell me, oh, you get used to it, but let me tell you, it is still frustrating to learn your way around this system. Unless you're like me and you just plug into Apple CarPlay every time you get into the car, then you don't have to worry about it too much. Unless you want to change the air conditioning or fan speed. So there are now hard buttons underneath this screen. There used to be a touch sensitive system, which when you rested your hand here, you would accidentally bump the touch sensitive buttons and take you away from what you actually wanted to be doing. That's in the older versions. This one, you now get hard buttons, which is a good thing. It's just a shame that there aren't more buttons or dials. There's no volume dial, there's no fan control dial, no tuning dial, and no air conditioning temperature dial. So everything is done through the screen, and it does actually get pretty frustrating to interact with, especially if it's a day like today where it's been between 18 degrees in the morning and 35 during the day, and you want to adjust the temperature to be just right for when you're in the car. You do have to interact with the screen too much, in my opinion. Now, speaking of interacting with the screens, there's another screen in front of the driver, which can take a little bit of learning, but generally it's got a lot of information available to the user as well. Another thing I'm not a massive fan of is the rotary dial gear selector. So unlike some other cars which have a rotary dial selector, this one doesn't have a stopper. It's kind of annoying. It should just stop at the edges of the gear selection, but it doesn't. Too bad. So what about other elements of the cabin? Obviously this one gets the big panoramic sunroof, which is nice. And there's a pair of cup holders in this covered center bin here. One of them's very small, the other one's quite large. I wish they just designed cup holders better. There's also a center console bin with a nice soft armrest. You've got a couple of storage sections here, probably for a wallet and maybe your keys. You've got a wireless phone charger in this spec as well, and a big storage section under this bridge here. So that's also where you'll find a 12 volt, and you've got USB connectivity down there too. Just remember, these are not real leather seats. They are called Comfort Tech, which is a fake leather trim. And also, I don't love the fact that it has this big Haval stitching across here. It just cheapens it a little bit. I don't think people need to know that they're driving a Haval when they're driving a Haval, if you get what I mean. One other thing, steering adjustment. So it goes up and down, but it doesn't go in and out. For someone my size, that is a bit of an issue because I can never get my arms to a comfortable position for my body, my legs, and my torso. And it does really frustrate me when it comes to driving this car. A simple thing like that could make it a little bit better to drive. Now, let's check out the back seat. So it is a bigger SUV on the inside than it appears on the outside. And that is one of the reasons that this could be the right car for you. It's got heaps of space. This is probably class leading levels of backseat space for a small SUV. Now remember, it's not that small, as I mentioned already, but it is very comfy back here in terms of space at least. Okay, so let's talk about the amenities. You've got a pair of rear seat air vents. You've got a couple of USB ports. You've got a flip down armrest with cup holders, at least in this spec. And the seat comfort isn't too bad. You've got a couple of map pockets on the backs of the front seats, bottle holders in the doors, and ISOFIX points on the window seats, plus 3 top tether points. If you've got kids, they're going to fit in here just fine. Even a rearward facing capsule, you'll still have enough space for someone to sit in front comfortably. This is a very roomy small SUV. The Haval Jolion comes with a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine. It's turbocharged and the power and torque outputs are on your screen now. Now, if you choose the S version, it gets a swift kick up the backside with an extra 20 kilowatts and 50 Newton meters, which is plenty for this size of car. Now, the petrol versions are 7-speed dual clutch automatics and front wheel drive. Now, if you choose the hybrid model, you get a 1.5 litre engine as well, but it has an electric motor and battery pack on side. So it's got pretty big power and torque outputs, as you'll see on your screen. It has a clever twin-speed transmission as well, so it can be more efficient when it comes to driving hybrid. stay tuned. The driving section of this video could be a little bit longer because I've got a few issues with this car. In fact, if you want to read my written review of the Haval Jolion Ultra, which I've also driven a couple of weeks ago, hit the link at the top of your screen. That'll take you to Car Expert. I'm doing some work for them as well. Hoping to get to their subscriber count at some point as well. Let's see how we go. But let's talk about the drive experience. Okay, so my big issue, one of them, is the engine and transmission combination. So the dual clutch auto is frustrating, to put it lightly. That's because it has this hesitation, this lag at low speeds, and combine that with a low output turbo engine, and you end up with a moment where you might actually find that the car is lagging and then lurching away from a standstill. Now that's what dual clutch automatic transmissions used to be like a few years ago. Another thing that annoys me, the blinker noise. Let's have a look at that right now. So I'll just pull away here. Now put my foot down a bit more, and it whooshes back. So you might like that. Maybe you owned a 98 WRX like I did, and that turbo thrust was what you were living for. But in a car like this, it's not refined enough, to be honest. It could be better. It could be a little bit smoother to take away from a standstill. And this is the S model, which has got an extra 20 kilowatts and 50 Newton meters. And so it has more of a tendency to whoosh you back in your seat because it's tuned up a bit more than the other models. And the other models, well, it's still annoying. Then there's the steering. I don't mind it too much, apart from when I'm trying to do a reverse parallel park. In combination with the engine and transmission, it just can be harder work than it really should be. And a lot of that has to do with the steering weighting up at the wrong times, but also that engine and transmission making it difficult to do a reverse parallel park. Look, there's one right here. I'll do it now. So put it into reverse, wait for it to lag up, and then back. Whoop, too much throttle. Again, too much throttle. It's really hard to ease into a spot. So I got in here okay. Now put it back in drive, go forward. So part of the thing is the throttle is very sensitive, but also it's laggy. So you can't really balance it as easily as you should be able to. So I'll just reverse out of here, get going. Jimny, watch my Jimny review. So what about the ride comfort? It's not too bad. I actually think it's better in the other grades of this car. The S gets a multi-link rear suspension instead of a torsion beam, and that is a bit more sophisticated, but in this instance, it's a bit firmer too. This engine is certainly punchy. It's got a lot of torque going through the front tires, and in fact, at times, it can spin those front tires because there's too much to get traction on the road surface below. And that's in the dry. I think I know what it's going to be like in the wet. Oh, the lag, my God. It's just frustrating to live with. I'm telling you, this is me being honest. Some other reviewers might not be as honest with you as I am, but this is a pain in the ass to live with. And it's a shame because that engine transmission, that lag, that frustrating element to the drive experience, especially at lower speeds, sours what is otherwise a livable experience in some ways. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about safety tech now because there's some issues with the, I guess, fine tuning or the application of the safety tech that's fitted to the Jolion. There's a lane keeping system which is assertive to the point of discomfort at times. You will feel that it pushes you around more in your lane than you really feel is warranted. The easiest thing to do is turn it off, and if you're comfortable doing that, it's a sequence of buttons on the screen, so not as easy as a button on the steering wheel or on the end of a stalk like some other vehicles have. And that is a distraction. You have to do so much through the screen. It's really distracting. It's also got this thing where if you've got adaptive cruise control operating and you turn a corner at say 100 kilometers an hour and it's a gentle sweeping curve, it thinks that it needs you to slow down, and it's really annoying. So I've actually found myself not using cruise control because I want to be in more control of the car. I'm driving, not you. Let's talk efficiency. So the normal versions of the Jolion, so the 1.5 turbo, the non-S and non-hybrid, have official combined cycle fuel consumption of 8.1 litres per 100 Ks, which is high for a little SUV. That's pretty high. And then there's the S version, which despite having more power and torque, manages to use less fuel, according to the paperwork at least, 7.5 litres per 100 Ks. Now, if you're wondering what I've seen during my time in the S, it's more like 9.8 litres per 100 Ks. So this is not an efficient car. Now, the hybrid version has an official combined cycle figure of 5 litres per 100 Ks. So if you are interested in saving fuel, you're gonna have to spend money to do it, or just buy a Corolla Cross hybrid. That's what I'd do. The Haval Jolion scored the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating against 2022 criteria. So it has all the safety tech that you would expect, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist and junction detection. There's adaptive cruise control. There's also lane keeping assistance, active lane keeping tech, so it'll steer you in your lane if it thinks you're going to stray from the lines. There's blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, and rear autonomous emergency braking, which will brake the car if a pedestrian crosses the path behind it while you're reversing. Very good tech. Then there's also all the airbags that you would expect. Driver, passenger, front, side and full length curtain airbags, and a front center airbag. And as well as that, there's also a driver monitoring camera, which has a little chime that pops up on the center screen and says, "Hey, don't stray." If it thinks that you aren't looking at the road or you're distracted, then it will distract you by putting a message on the screen. It's not great tech. In fact, that's the story with this Jolion's safety technology more generally. If it was better integrated into the drive experience, it could be a lot more valuable to the driver. I've heard from some Jolion owners that the 7-year warranty was one of the main reasons that they chose this car, and it is a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty as well, so that is good peace of mind for those who are going to hang on to their car for a little while. It's also got 5 years of roadside assist included for free, which is nice, and there's servicing intervals of 12 months, 10,000 Ks for the first service, and then every 12 months or 15,000 Ks after that, up to 5 years for the cap price servicing plan, and averages out at $310 per visit to the service centre. Not too bad, really. With a bit of fine tuning, I think the Haval Jolion could be a really good car. I don't think it's there yet. I think there are better alternatives out there in terms of the drive experience, at least. Now, if that matters to you, like I said, check out a Kia Seltos or a Nissan Qashqai or a Toyota Corolla Cross. But if it doesn't, this could tick all your boxes. Go and check it out, see what you reckon. Let me know if you do buy one in the comments section below, or if you already have bought one. I'd love to hear from you and see if we share the same thoughts. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.